Hey there, Guy and Penny from Midwinter Minis here, and in this video we're going to show you how to create a whole table full of solid, line-of-sight blocking terrain that looks great, is easy to make, and is surprisingly durable.
Spoilers! It's polystyrene. But we're going to dispel a few myths that you might have about working with this stuff, and share a secret technique to making it nice and hard.
Styrofoam, or expanded polystyrene, whatever you call it, it's bloody everywhere. If you've ever bought any kind of appliance, it'll have come packed in this stuff. These particular bits were shipped with a PC case, but it comes in all different shapes and sizes. And if you're a hoarder like me, you probably have a few bits of this stuff lying around, waiting to use in a cool terrain or modelling project. Well, today is that day.
Thank God for that. On paper, this stuff is a great building material. It's rigid and lightweight, relatively easy to cut and work with, but it does have its downsides. It's a bit tricky to cut without fancy equipment. Spray paint propellant melts it, and cut edges are prone to flaking, exposing the bright white underneath and ruining the look of your terrain. If only there was some easy, cheap method of fixing all of these problems. Oh wait, there is. And most of it can be fixed with a secret ingredient that you already have. But let's deal with the cutting first.
You might think you need a hot wire tool, or at least one of those swanky hot rod things, but the truth is, if you want your polystyrene terrain to look like concrete, a boring old retractable utility knife with a long blade is going to be perfect. By the way, I'm making concrete walls. Should have said that, sorry. You don't have to, you can make whatever you want. Anyway, just lock the knife with the blade fully extended, and then cut with the sawing motion. Depending on what you're making, you may want to mark out your cut lines with pencil first, but I just wanted to slice the edges of this case protecting foam to make some easy walls. After you've cut your main shapes out, you might have some straggly bits ruining your aesthetic. No problem, just run your knife gently along the edges and shave them all off. I also cut a few bits slightly wonky. Again, no problem. Now that you're not holding a big block of foam, you can handle it a bit easier. Just shave off the offensive bits and make things a bit straighter. I cut the long edge pieces into smaller parts to make the walls a bit more modular, and to make them a bit more interesting, I cut out some 45-degree angles from these central blocks. I also attacked a couple of sections with a knife, and then broke them in two to make damaged walls. You can also stab, cut and nick any bits you like to simulate battle damage, or laser beams, or bullet holes, whatever you want. Tidy up any sticky out bits, and then we're done with the knife. No expensive tools required.
So now we've got a lot of foam walls. It only took about an hour of hacky-slashy fun to get to this point, and this whole project only takes a few sessions of an hour or two each to complete. It's mostly drying time. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Cutting polystyrene is really messy, so you'll want to have a vacuum cleaner on hand to keep this stuff from getting everywhere. Now, one of the slight downsides to using foam for terrain is that it's very light and not that stable. This can easily be remedied though. When you've pretended to be an adult for as long as we have, you'll probably also have a collection of crap bolts and screws in a box. Are they supposed to be in furniture that you own? Are they even yours? Who knows? But you can screw any old thing up into the base of your foam to give it some more weight, and shift the centre of gravity downwards. Easy. This is totally optional, obviously. If the stuff you make isn't as tall and skinny as this is, it probably won't matter as much. This handy hint was borrowed from Black Magic Craft. His channel's full of awesome DIY terrain builds, so go and check him out after this.
If you're making broken walls like us, you might want to put some sticky out rebar stuff in to make it look like it was reinforced. I just used cocktail sticks. Snip them in half, give the sharp end a dab of PVA, and ram them into the broken sides of the walls. Job's a good one. Okay, you've waited long enough. Time to spill the beans on this foam protecting and texturing technique. The secret ingredient is flour. It's so obvious when you think about it. Crafters use this to make paper mache paste all the time. So mix up a thick paint using 1 part water, 1 part flour, 1 part PVA glue, and 1 part cheap black craft paint. Also add a healthy shake of salt. Salting the mix will stop the flour from spoiling over time, and we're going to add loads of paint anyway, but the salt should kill the bacteria that's alive in the mix right now, and will stop it from going nasty in the future.
Now mix all this up until you're left with a thick black gloop, like a goth cake batter. Now grab a big paintbrush and paint this mixture thickly all over the foam. Make sure to put down some newspaper or a bin bag under where you're working, as this gets messy. As the stuff's pretty thick, you'll probably want to leave it overnight to dry. Give it another coat the next day and leave it to dry again. 2 thick coats. I can hear Duncan crying from here.
So this is what a double coat of this mixture looks like. You can really start to see it filling up the bobbly texture of the foam, especially in the parts where it was cut and ripped. You can basically add as many coats as you like, but even after only 2 coats, it's made a sort of solid shell. Listen. Also, it's now totally protected from melting when you spray it. Speaking of which, for my concrete walls, I gave them a light spray with Halford's Grey Primer. Now, concrete isn't just grayscale, it usually has a mix of warm earth tones thrown in there too, so to add texture, we'll mix up a new grey with cheap white, black and brown craft paint. And then I'm going to use a sponge to splodge on this warmer grey randomly here and there. Another benefit of sponging on thick paint is that it also creates a nice texture too. I then added a bit of yellow and white to that grey mix, and sponged on even more paint. Nice, starting to look a bit more realistic. Let's add some darker areas. No fancy Nuln Oil or anything needed here, just heavily dilute black paint with water and slap it on everywhere. If it pools too much, wipe it away with a bit of kitchen paper, and just make sure it gets in all the cracks and battle damaged bits. After it's dried, it'll look something like this. Nice and dingy.
If you want to bring out some of the crackly details and raised edges, dry brushing is the fastest, easiest way of doing that on terrain. Grab your biggest brush, mix up your lightest grey yet, and just whip your brush back and forth along the edges and prominent bits. To bring it to life a bit and to put the walls in scale with the game we're using them for, we added some Warhammer and Necromunda themed posters. If you just do an image search for Warhammer posters, you'll find the ones we're using here. Print them out and use diluted PVA glue to stick them down, just like tiny bits of wallpaper. Some here, lots there, none in other places. Try to mix it up a bit. That's me sticking these down, by the way.
Terrain projects like this are really fun to do with friends and family, and they're easy enough to even get kids involved too.
That's why I was allowed.
Now, what's a good wall without a bit of post-apocalyptic graffiti? Use felt tips to write any old phrase you want on the walls. Finally, use thin brown paint to add dirty water streaks coming out of any of the broken, cracked or damaged bits of the wall, and smudge it around other places to add some tonal variety. And that's basically it. A whole table full of terrain that blocks line of sight, is easy to make, will last for ages, and stores well. If you're in the hobby, you probably have every single thing used in this tutorial. PVA glue, craft paint, flour, there's no special stuff here.
We hope this has given you a bit of inspiration on what to do with your secret stockpile of styrofoam, and while you check out the arty shots of these Warhammer walls on this gorgeous battle mat from Deep Cut Studio, we'd like to thank our latest patrons for joining up.
Wraith, Thomas Van Groll, Michael Cornford, Gatsby Keys, Zachary Zink, Harris Blankenship, CBT, Darren Bonenberg, Craft Paint Play, Kevin Bogoni,
Crack Stuntman, Kevin Gunleader, William Burbridge, Andrew Drever, Matt Sieberlich, Thijs de Kock, Resurrect, Sean Laurie, Kerning Pato, Alex Page,
Simon Crouch, Johnny the M, Jack Gleason, Iggy Furr, Sean Nolan, Tyson Corley, Dale Matthews, Martin Holtman, Adrian Doyle, Scott Benson,
Ian Tate, Sebastian Loudvine, Cameron Harris, Titania Wallace, Nelson Atmos, Todd McDonald, Count 00, Duncan Godwin, Josh Lambert, Permanganate7,
Carl Timmons, Hannah Johnson, Reese Fraser, Justin Sensenbaugh, Thunderlust, Lost Warden, Chris James, Kevin, Gridlock, Darren Homer,
Nova Norris, Michael Lagrange, Jamie Potton, Christian L, George Bryan, Connor Dalton, Sean Leslie, Torsten Schultz, Mark Morokuti, Tom,
Jarno Halakainen, Old Goat 58, Jay Springett, Sebastian Segura, Zog Zogger McZoggety Zogs, Dalen L. Scroggins, Zachary Harlock, Seymour Millen, Garrett Rooney, Emily Mount,
Skuldy, Dennis Elliott, James Wilson, Johnny H, Cold Shower, John Russell, Stephen Carpenter, Luke Steichen, Jimmy Johansson, Cody Preston. Woo! Thanks to the support of our patrons, Guy can make these videos for you as a full-time job. He is bloody living the dream.
I actually am. Thank you so much everyone. Bye for now.
Bye!